You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
Before we get into today's episode, I want to tell you a little bit about our current sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. As you well know, if you've been following This is Oklahoma, they've been a huge part of this podcast. So this podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, telling an Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Also, for the podcast, a new sponsor this year that's just come on board and super excited to announce RCB Bank. Since 1936, RCB Bank has offered progressive products and a friendly service. Come in today to find out more about their loan promotion on new, used, refinance cars, boats, campers, and ATVs. Visit RCB Bank to learn more. RCB Bank, that's my bank. With approved credit, restrictions apply. Now, let's get into today's episode. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode down at the Bedford studio again. Like I say this every time, if you need a camera or you need prints or anything to do with that stuff, come on down. Tell him This is Oklahoma sent you. I almost said Mrs. Oklahoma. That's not me. My guest today, Caylee Dodson, Director of Restore OKC, and then Jonathan Field, Director of Restore Jobs, which that's just one of the titles I'm sure that you guys do. Thanks for coming down. I'm excited to talk about the market and excited to just talk about when it's coming out. And you know, the whole east side of Oklahoma City needs this. And it's a long time coming. And I'm excited that someone's finally doing something. So appreciate you guys coming in. Before we dive into that stuff and tell people about the market, I guess, who are you and what do you really do? Like, who are you really? That's what we're going to dive into first. So if you want to give yourselves an introduction and I guess, how do you get to Oklahoma City?
Yeah.
Ladies first, I guess.
Oh, man. Is that polite? I don't know if that's polite or not. We'll determine that later. So I actually was born and raised in Oklahoma City area, so northwest Oklahoma City. Married my husband right out of college, Oklahoma State, America's brightest orange. And
we'll clear that up a little bit later.
America's brightest orange. Yeah. Yours is burnt. You don't even try to be bright. It's not even a thing you guys do.
When things go into fire, they refine till the...
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is my turn. Ladies first.
Oh, you're right.
So graduated Oklahoma State, married my husband, wound up within a year of that in St. Louis, Missouri. So we spent about 10 years there, did our master's degrees, and really what wound up happening for us was we belonged to a church body there that was incredibly multicultural, incredibly diverse socioeconomically, and that experience and coming on staff with a community development ministry in St. Louis during the years and kind of formative years up to the shooting and killing of Michael Brown was just an incredible, flipped our worlds on its head experience. Spent 10 years there working with women transitioning out of prostitution and addiction. My husband managed low-income housing and really just doing life with neighbors taught us how little we really understand about the world and the way it works for folks who don't look like me. And so that drastically changed everything about just sort of the trajectory of our lives and what we understood in terms of where we were called to be. And then when Michael Brown was shot and killed in Ferguson, a group of individuals, families, friends, connections from families and friends that we knew back here wanted to come and visit what we were a part of there in St. Louis. At the same time that Michael Brown was happening in St. Louis, Missouri, the Daniel Holtzclaw trials were actually happening in this city, which was the officer that was indicted, I believe, on 90-something counts of sexual abuse, almost all against women in our community. And it was really highlighting, honestly, for a lot of the majority culture, this question. I say this, and I say it with a little bit of a cringe, because I do think that it is honestly the question that the majority culture was asking at that time, which was, do we have a race problem? If you sat in Northeast Oklahoma City, or you sat in inner city St. Louis, or you sat in Ferguson, Missouri, you already knew the answer to that question. But I do think in a very painful way, that moment in time woke a lot of people up to ask the question, do we have a race problem? And if so, not only as a faith community, but certainly uniquely as a faith community, how are we to then respond? And so what was discovered over the course of coming to visit us in St. Louis, and us just sort of leaving them with some questions and discovery was, they came back and found, hey, in Oklahoma City's context, yes, there's an 18-year life discrepancy between Northeast Oklahoma City and the wider city average. Yes, we've got, when we began Restore OKC, 2 of our 3 schools were considered failed at every level. There were tremendous, issues around racial divisions that were creating an impact of multi-generational poverty that was rooted in injustice for our community. And I think that was really eye-opening. So we landed back here to help start Restore OKC in the summer of 2016 alongside Ernest O'Dunsey and his family, born and raised in Northeast Oklahoma City, graduate of Northeast High School, and we're just honored to come alongside them. Moved into the community we now get to serve, call it home. I'm proud to do that now for about 5 years, and here we are.
Yeah. Top that.
That's me. He
Right.
can. He's
I'll
pretty
try my
cool.
best.
Yeah.
So Jonathan Veal, originally from Houston, Texas, the great state of Texas, where God smiles on it every single day.
Yeah.
So I grew up in inner city context similar to the Northeast Side, called Third Ward, which is literally 5 blocks from downtown Houston. Literally born, educated, raised in that area. So I spent 13 years with Chick-fil-A on their expansion team. So when they would identify a market, I would be a part of the team that would go in and meet with that operator that was selected, help with developmental plan, vendor accounts, set of vendor accounts, the recruitment, the hiring, the training, and then mobilizing certified trainers to come in and to support the grand opening, and would stay another 4 weeks in and then launch out after that. So back in 2007, Oklahoma City was identified by Chick-fil-A Inc. as a growth market. So I was assigned to Oklahoma City. So we started with Midwest City, Norman, and then Moore. And so I built relationships with a lot of operators in the area and began just to really grow fond of this area. So when we opened up the Moore location, it was something different about the individuals in that area. So I called my wife while I'm in the hotel and said, "What do you think about moving to Oklahoma?" And she said, "Oklahoma, what? Where?"
She's like, "You're
crazy." I said, "Moore, Oklahoma." And she said, let's think about this. So, give you a little bit more context. We had just been in our new house 2 years. One of my wife's dreams was to have a house where she opened the front door, she could see the front door of the elementary school. And we'd found this house just, in a nice little cul-de-sac. But we felt God leading us here, and we prayed about it, moved up. Didn't know anyone here at all. At least we thought at first. But once we started getting embedded in the community, we started learning that we knew people who we had met, prior to moving to Oklahoma that we'd already established relationships with. So 2016, I have a heart for high capacity leaders and growing leadership teams. So I launched out and started my own business called Built to Bridge Management Group that focused on people and leadership development. And so my church had been doing what we call work days. Every second Saturday of the month, we invite the greater Oklahoma City into the northeast side of Oklahoma City to serve alongside those neighbors. So my church was a part of that. That's how I met Caylee and Ernest and the rest of the team, and just really fell in love even more, and just started thinking, wow, this looks so familiar to me. It was because that's Northeast Side was really reflective of where I grew up in Houston. And so just through some conversations, and Ernest and Caylee, they brought me over and we talked about like the heart of Built a Bridge, and a lot of what I had in my heart was similar to what they had in their heart. Funny story, a good friend of mine was working with a urban ministry in South Dallas, and so I was driving to Houston, going to meet with the client, got stuck in Dallas traffic, called him and said, "Hey, where's this ministry you're at?" He said, "It's 7 minutes away from downtown." I was like, "Okay, I'm pulling over instead of getting stuck in traffic." And so as I pull up, I see what's going on, and I'm thinking in my head, this is Restore OKC. And so I get a tour and I get back on the road. As soon as I get back on the road, I text both these guys like, I don't know what we need to do, but I need to make sure you guys get here. And she's like, get where? Like, have you ever heard of Bonton Farm? She's like, yes, we've been trying to get there for and make a contact. You have a contact? I said, I'll take it from here. So this was 2019 now, around June. And we set up for a tour with Caylee, Ann Miller, who is our director of farms, and Josh Dodson, Caylee's husband. We took a tour, and the hook was definitely in their mouths. A lot of what Restore had in their heart about seeing come to fruition was already taking place and being fleshed out. And so, on the trip back, we I think a couple days later, we had a debrief, and we really felt good about, where Restore was, but the potential of where it could be, because they had opportunity to really see it being fleshed out. And then about 2 weeks later, the only grocery store left, full grocery store left in Northeast Side, closed on MLK and 23rd. So the 3 to 5 year plan of opening the market got accelerated. So over the course of 10 to 12 weeks, what used to be a shipping container storage workshop area was transformed into what we knew as our market at Restore.
Yeah.
A little micro grocery.
So
super exciting.
1,200 square foot micro grocery.
Yeah.
It was an incredible feat. In a partnership of the city. This whole thing has been an incredible partnership with the city and Nikki Nice and the Alliance. I mean, we could go on and on names, but we're able to get our 1,200 square foot little workshop actually zoned as a full-blown retail grocery location. So that has been incredible, just to have a food option for neighbors during the pandemic especially. So it also makes us really excited about adding some square footage here to the Market at Eastpoint and getting an actual, we kind of use a Trader Joe's sized grocery store in the heart of the community. So we're definitely excited about that. Definitely surpassed our 3 to 5 year plan after we went down. Restore OKC is a community development organization in Northeast Oklahoma City. So our offices are at Northeast 27th and Martin Luther King, just east of Martin Luther King. And we're actually on a 5-acre property there that was an incredible find and gift to us, that we rezoned as an urban farm when we purchased it. So we actually are a 5-acre urban farm, and there's about 18 youth that are from the community that are working on that urban farm. And really, we're kind of the heartbeat for us. So when we went to visit Bonton Farms, which is our sister farm in South Dallas now, they had this urban farm going as well, but they had that market grocery store attached in the middle of a community on a dead-end street cul-de-sac, and you would think, good gosh, if they're making this work in the worst possible retail location, I think we have a market for it in Oklahoma City as well.
If I could give greater context to that, back in 2002, so I moved from Houston to Dallas, and I just wanted to see the city. And so I heard about, Bonton in South Dallas, so just kind of naive and just driving around the city and, found Bonton and came back and told some individuals, hey, I was hanging out and went to South Dallas. I was in Bonton. They're like, why did you go to Bonton? You made it out of Bonton. Do you know where you were? Let me give you the history. So they started giving me history about it. And then now fast forward, we took that trip in 2017. Not the entire city, the entire country, internationally, Bonton has an attraction, and so it shows you what can happen when individuals open themselves and work together, how you can transform a community.
Right, that gives you hope too, doesn't it? And you know
Totally.
that one of the quotes is like, if someone else has done it, then someone else, we can do it, right? Like if someone else has done this, then it is possible for us to do it as well.
Yeah, and that's what I told them, was that by seeing this, if you stay obedient to what God has placed in your heart, everything will be accelerated. I think that's happened.
Right. Yeah. With your 5-year plans.
Right.
Yeah. That 5-year plan became very accelerated very quickly. So, and a lot of that is, that is possible because of just incredible buy-in from community leaders who serve on the community action team. interns, which, if you're not connected to the next generation of our communities, you should do so. It is such a fuel to us continually to see just sort of not only their vision, but the energy with which they pursue it and want to see a better future for themselves, but for the next generations behind them. So getting to push behind them too, as their vision was, hey, what if we could not only kind of grow some food in our community, what if we could sell it? Yeah. And, sort of start to see the reciprocal impact of food, not only, exchanging hands one time as we grow it, turn around, sell it into Homeland's inventory, but Homeland puts it on our shelves and we turn around and then sell it again. What do you start to see as a tax base that supports your public school systems, and just sort of the cumulative impact you can't really fully fathom when you start things like this. It's been a pretty incredible thing to witness.
For some context, people listening, I don't think people realize how, when that store closed, where was the nearest store for them in that area, right? I've been fortunate enough to be on the regional food bank board this year, and I didn't know until I was educated through that, and the work that the food bank does as well for everyone, and just shocked how far people had to actually travel to get groceries. It's nuts.
It is nuts. We tell a story of a neighbor who she walked to the nearest gas station for her, which is a decent hike for her. And we have quite a bit of our community is transit dependent. Mm-hmm. So I think that's another factor. You have to consider is incredibly fortunate. We don't maybe necessarily think about it as an incredibly fortunate thing to have a vehicle. I can get in my car and drive 20 minutes across town and go to whichever I want.
Sure.
That is not the majority of our community. So it definitely was a huge hit. We did some immediate food distributions actually with Regional Food Bank and Skyline, and it was actually in the context of those emergency food distributions that sort of the idea for the grocery store was born. But those were incredibly helpful because most of our community, there was sort of one smaller market that was not deemed very viable by some neighbors. So a lot of our neighbors were doing, at the time, around a 3-hour round-trip bus ride to get to a grocery store that they considered full service for them. So that was a pretty astronomical thing to consider. And that first summer, gosh, we would probably pick up several individuals per day getting off those bus stops. And if you think about it, if I'm going to go a 3-hour bus trip, I'm going to load up with everything I can, but it's also July in Oklahoma. So all my stuff's melting by the time I get home, and I'm trying to bust it home with all these bags. And, we'd pick people up, just drive them back, just wanting to see their cold items stay cold. And it was definitely a wild moment for a lot of neighbors.
You mentioned community, and I mean, people listening to the podcast or just that are aware that listen to stuff around Oklahoma City in the news that community is spoken about a lot, but I don't think people actually realize how much of an impact it has. You talk about it, hey, Oklahoma City has a really cool community, but you guys actually know the full impact of it and the help that Homeland has given and everybody else, right? Tell us a little bit about kind of the on the ground impact that you have seen and are a part of.
Yeah.
I guess there's so many. It's probably just a few examples.
Gosh,
I
was going to say.
Sorry to give you that question.
No, one of the things I think is the most incredible, just sort of, I don't know, little mark of approval that this is the thing we were supposed to do is the amount of, when you think of community, I think of, okay, if something like this were to happen to me, if I go through a crisis, if I suffer some sort of a catastrophe, I'm going to have people surrounding me with the full weight of their resources and support, and they're going to make sure that I don't fall, my kids don't fall, right? We're not going to experience need in those basic need categories. We're going to be cared for, carried, surrounded. There's a lot of folks who don't have that, and that's sort of the basic building block of community. And so I think in a really wonderful way, if you think about, what does community development do in this situation, to look at where are the leaders and community members who actually do have a lot they want to give, and can we kind of convene those things so that we actually do see that fabric of community that's existing in every place, every individual community has this. Can we kind of bring that to an expression that lets it be a little more fully fleshed out? So in moments like this, we're less vulnerable as a community. And so, early conversations with Homeland. Homeland's always been a partner in our little 1,200 square foot market. We don't meet the minimums to order directly from AWG, so Homeland sort of uses their volume to allow us to order direct and keep costs low. That's been incredible. When we kind of saw, okay, this is a longer term thing, getting to chat with Homeland and getting to think outside the box. So we built a first of its kind public-private partnership to do this. So we as a 501c3 own this grocery store, and that means some incredible things for neighbors. One, it means we control sort of price points. We can subsidize things, we can raise grants, we can kind of do some things to try to offset costs on items or category items that we know are needed in the community. We can also sort of garner some partnerships with like OU Health Science Center and other folks who have a vested interest in sort of long-term community health, who that 18-year, life discrepancy speaks to a lot of social determinant of health markers that we need to be addressing as not just as, nonprofit groups, but as the whole city. We need to be thinking about. So hopefully we can bridge and broker some of those things in. But the most incredible, the wall of names of people who contributed to bring this thing to pass is just it's this wild tapestry of, churches, Black Lives Matter, corporations, neighbors who ran over like wads of cash after work from tips that and it's this display of names. You're like, these kinds of people do not normally collaborate. They don't normally even get along, So to see sort of the collective worth and people go, no, there is a unique moment here where we are called to, I think, be community to one another, especially in a community where we have not acted as community in throughout history. We have a unique moment here. We have to step up and do something, and it's been profound to, I think, watch those things play out.
Yeah, I'm sure super empowering just to see everything come together like that, right? Because you're never going to get those people in a room with any other reason.
No.
And if
wild.
it is, it's a bad reason.
Right.
Something bad has happened.
And they won't stay in that room long.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Jonathan, tell me about kind of your, obviously it's great having the store and you can provide and people can buy groceries, but you have a unique perspective because this is going to provide jobs as well.
Yeah.
So tell me about kind of your angle and how you specifically work, to create the jobs, right? And staff and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So this market project had me revisit some history I had with Chick-fil-A. So my primary role was, like I said, new openings. And so the process that I did over 25 times with Chick-fil-A. I brought that experience into this project as well. And so, but from a jobs perspective, you think about those things that make up a healthy community. Healthy access to education, fair banking, housing, food, but then also employment. And so a lot of times. Individuals in industry, they look for the pristine application or resume, and a lot of individuals that we have engaged from a jobs perspective, they either have made a poor decision or life circumstances that put them in a certain place where they can't find tangible employment. And so the unique thing about what we do is the two things that we look for is the ability to show up, be present, and then just have a great attitude. Now, if you do both, that's great. But if you can just have one of those, we can work with the other.
Yeah.
So, and so to meet individuals where they are, understand where they want to go to, then help them, bridge the gap in between. For me, it's just so life-giving because their experience up until this point has not been that. A lot of times in industry and ministry. The work engagement is just transactional. You come, you clock in from 9 to 5, you get a paycheck, at the end of 2 weeks, and that's it. We're not concerned about where you are in life. Why have you showed up 5 minutes late the last couple of weeks? But we want to make employment relational. We want to know the whole person. We're not concerned about just the person who's working, but we want to know what are the things, the factors that are driving that person's behavior when they do come into work, which is so key. And so just in a short amount of time, we've been able to see, families change, their lives change. And obviously with 2020 and the pandemic, we were able to see that on a even, elevated scale last year where we had families individuals that was working with us and, when the schools were shut down, they had to go virtual. Like, how do I deal with this? And we opened up our market space. Hey, come here. We can do all we can to support you. Or housing came into into question, we came around them and said, okay, how can we help you and bring our partners alongside you to help you? And that was all through employment and jobs. And so also, any employment opportunity through Restore Jobs, we don't want that to be the end point. We want that to be the launching point. And so we have an 8-week job training course called Work Life that helps individuals reshape their story, help them go through soft skills and conflict resolution, code switching. Towards the end, once they've shown themselves consistent, we bring outside partners in to help them with mock interviews. So typically, because you've had this shaky past or poor decisions, the anxiety level is high and the confidence level is low. Going into an interview session with a Kimray or another major corporation, but now you've gone through this mock interview and you've kind of gotten intel into what industry is looking for. The anxiety level goes down, the confidence level goes up, and to see that person's face just blossom and just get excited, it's like I said, it's like even for me to be a part of that. So
that's awesome, and you're right. You're kind of like you're giving people a second, third, fourth chance, whatever. But it's you're building their relationship. You're building their relationship, but you're launching them into a future career, right?
Right.
Of course, you'd love them to stay there forever, but also I think you would probably have them, give them a chance. They work at the store. And then 9 years later, you see them and they've got a full career with, like you said, a Kimray or someone, and they're a part of the community and they're helping others and they're just giving back. And you're right. I can see why that. I'm just thinking about it now. If I was a part of that, right, and you just imagine yourself speaking to someone, it could be an older gentleman who's had a bad past or a mother or whatever. It's. You're a huge you're the change in their life that they needed.
Yeah, and we communicate this on the front end because, a lot of times in industry, when they hire this individual, they want to get all they can out of them, and then when that person has capped off their growth potential, they move on to someone else. But we take the inverted approach. We want to invest in you as much as we can, and then launch you. Into wherever you want to go. And so for them, this, like I said, this is foreign. They're like, wait, you're investing all this in me? And you're not looking for the return? I'm like, no, the return is you getting out for us. The return is you getting launched into whatever that is. It could be an entrepreneur opportunity, or you working in the industry that you really feel passionate and purposeful about. And so it's so exciting to be a part of it. Now here's the awesome thing that we've been able to do. We created a culture where people want to stay. So we've retained about 95% of our people. But it's cool to see we built something that people want to stay around and be around. Right. And then what we tell them is what you've experienced, now go give that, go share that with someone else. So the opportunity, the margin that we place in your life, go do that. And then that's how you see a community over time begin to change.
Yeah. So once this opens up and it's going and you've got everyone coming in, I guess this is just one project of many that's on the future plans, right? You said you had a 5-year plan. I'm sure there was a 10 and a 20. What is next?
Yes. So it may be helpful to sort of understand too, the overarching structure, the 501c3, the nonprofit is Restore OKC. Underneath that, there are a bunch of arms. So we've, our Restore Schools arm has 475 volunteers across 3 partner elementary schools that serve our Northeast Oklahoma City community. Really excited about some very fun plans and partnership with Boys and Girls Club in terms of just how we make a significant impact for students, even beyond putting support around the schools themselves and staff. We've got a homes arm that does home repair and low-income housing, which we're also expanding right now. No wonder we're tired. We have, the jobs arm, which is, so underneath Restore Jobs, we have a residential and commercial cleaning company called Wellspring, who has boomed actually during COVID as they went CDC certified for COVID remediation, and they have been just an incredible growth company to watch. So it's one employment arm. The Market is another employment arm. There's definitely more plans and hopes there to kind of get invested behind community leaders and just continue to replicate businesses that can employ more people, and we can do this work exponentially. And then there's Restore Farms, which is just beginning, really. So we've got 3, aquaponic greenhouses, commercial greenhouses with aquaponic growing towers in them. We've got high school students that are really learning, everything from ag technologies to business and marketing and sales and strategy and everything that comes along with that, and partnerships with OSU and Langston. And so we're excited about all the growth potentials in all of those arms. Yeah, the market is just one. It is a very exciting one, and we think it's going to have a pretty drastic, immediate impact for the community in a way that maybe some of the others haven't. So we're excited to see that unfold. But then we'll kind of stay the course and just keep pressing in and going on.
And then even with the market is actually not the apex. Mm-hmm. It's actually just a point of reference to drive people back to the 5 acre farm.
Gotcha.
So we can talk about, like, why do we have to have a 5 acre farm in an urban context? Because typically farms are rural, outside of the city limits.
Yeah.
Yep.
But why do we have to have it? And so to be able to engage in those conversations, the market will be pivotal in making that happen.
Yeah.
So
there is also within the store, and we have failed to mention this, and we should not fail to, because it is an incredible piece, a cafe called the Eastside Eatery, run by former head chef of Family Affair, which is an incredibly well-known restaurant on the east side, Brandy Jones. So she will be head chef in there, and then Dante, assistant chef, Dante Mason, and a few others who have just been incredible chefs that are very well known through the east side. So come grab a bite to eat in the Eastside Eatery, come shop the store.
Yeah. Awesome.
So one thing I do want to share about the market, after we get past that initial grand opening day, market business hours be from 7 a.m. Monday through Saturday to 8 p.m. and then Sunday 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Mm-hmm. The Eastside Eatery will be open 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. and from Monday through Saturday, and then on Sundays 12 to 4 p.m.
Yeah.
We talk about not just thinking about that person, but their entire family. If you're spending all your time at work, how do you have time to build relationships with your family? And so that was even some of our strategic thinking in business and operating hours for the market and the cafe as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, guys, pleasure. Thanks for coming down, sharing some stories. I love what you do. That people see Restore OKC and they don't know the hours that you put in, and I'm sure it's a lot more than you get credit for. So I appreciate you doing everything you do, and for everyone listening, everything that Jonathan and Caylee just mentioned, the links to the social media, the hours, the eatery, it'll all be down in the description below, so you can go straight to that. And we'll catch you next episode. Cheers. This podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, telling Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Also, huge shout out to RCB Bank for jumping on board to be a sponsor. RCB Bank's loan promotion is here for a limited time. Head into any of their 40 Oklahoma locations to get as low as 1.79 APR on your next car, boat, camper, or ATV. Apply online at rcbbank.com. RCB Bank, that's my bank. Rate and finance with approved credit. Restrictions apply, and member FDIC. Huge shout out to my sponsors. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.